Bernie, AOC, Mandani are not Democrats. They'll be the first to tell you that. They're democratic socialists, and that's a very different thing, and I don't think people know that yet. The DSA are radicals about this concept, and radical economic policy is always ineluctably married to radical social policy. Their platform, for example, calls for completely open borders. They're for what Biden was doing, but more. You think you're going to win an election on that? James Carville knew how to win, and he blamed the Democratic losses this November 2nd on stupid wokeness, to which AOC fired back that wokeness is a term almost exclusively used by older people these days. So that should tell you all you need to know. What? This is a term folks like you brought out very recently and had been proudly displaying at every march since. Just last year, The Guardian declared woke the word of our era. I guess they didn't get the memo from the Mean Girls Club. We don't use that emoji anymore. Woke, please, we say fetch now.
Bernie and AOC are squarely in Bill Maher cites as the comedian exposes why their strategies are falling flat. Sanders hasn't abandoned his presidential dreams, and AOC, though vague about her intentions, might not mind taking a shot. Yet for some curious reasons, their plans keep hitting roadblocks. So Ma opens Pandora's box, revealing why they...
Democratic socialism is like a dating profile. Things look great until you meet up in the real world. For example, Bernie Sanders, his big thing was always bringing single-payer health care to our country of 340 million. But when liberal, tie-dyed Vermont tried to do it for a population of 626,000, it collapsed like that poor in the Oval Office last week.
According to Bill Maher, Bernie Sanders' strategy struggles because his policies fail to translate into broad electoral support. While Bernie may not identify with the label, Maher argues his policy positions are often associated with socialism, including his push to heavily tax the wealthiest Americans and his advocacy for single-payer healthcare. Maher argues that these policies, while popular among certain progressive circles, often clash with broader public sentiment, limiting their political effectiveness. He points to real-world examples in Sanders' home state of Vermont, where efforts to implement single-payer healthcare faced significant challenges and ultimately failed to deliver the sweeping results he had promised. Ma uses this as a cautionary tale, suggesting that Sanders' broader strategy of pushing ambitious socialist reforms may be admirable in theory but struggles in practice, especially...
I don't think people realize we already have a lot of socialism. Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, unemployment insurance, food stamps, veterans benefits, Pell Grants, COVID-era payments, farm subsidies, disability payments, Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, corporate bailouts, and the jobs program that is building weapons the Pentagon doesn't even want. All that is social.
Bill Maher also points out that another major reason AOC and Bernie Sanders seem to be losing traction is the label Democratic Socialist. According to Ma, this tag sets them apart from traditional Democrats in the eyes of many voters. While Democrats are generally associated with progressive reforms within a capitalist framework, Maher argues that Democratic Socialists' music advocate for policies involving significantly expanded government involvement in the economy. Distinction that matters because for many Americans, the word socialist carries negative connotations and evokes fears of government overreach or economic instability. Even if Sanders and AOC temper their policies in practice, the label alone can create resistance among moderate and swing voters.
DSA are radicals about this concept, and radical economic policy is always ineluctably married to radical social policy. Their platform, for example, calls for completely open borders. They're for what Biden was doing, but more. You think you're going to win an election on that? This just seems like more extremism at a time when Americans are begging both parties, please, could just one of you act normal?
Bill Maher explains that a big reason Americans are wary of democratic socialists is fear that if they gain power, the country could face even bigger problems. Many voters already feel frustrated with current issues such as immigration, the economy, and government spending. Ma points out that some voters look at current concerns over border enforcement under Biden and worry that democratic socialist policies could push government control even further. The implication is clear. Voters may grumble at Biden's policies, but compared to what democratic socialists might implement, they could see him in a much more favorable light. Ma uses this contrast to highlight why candidates like Bernie Sanders and AOC struggle to expand beyond their progressive base. Is not necessarily a rejection of their ideas.
It's either defund the police or military in the streets. Either MAGA's crypto crony capitalism or city-run grocery stores. No, I don't want that. I want a Democrat who reassures me if you like your Whole Foods, you can keep your Whole Foods.
Bill Maher makes his stance clear. He favors capitalism, a system where individuals have the freedom to control their own destinies, make their own choices, and reap the rewards or face the consequences of their decisions. Argues that this framework encourages innovation, hard work, and personal responsibility, allowing people to shape their own futures rather than relying on government mandates. Frankly, that's a sentiment many Americans share, and it's at the heart of what the American dream represents. A vision where anyone, regardless of their background, can achieve success through effort, ingenuity, and determination. In Maher's view, socialism undermines this core principle by centralizing control, limiting opportunity, and stifling ambition. By championing capitalism,
Governor-elect Spanberger once said about Biden's presidency that, quote, nobody elected him to be FDR. They elected him to be normal. Normal! You know, at this year's DSA convention, or as it's commonly known, Comic-Con, get this, you had to submit a photo of a negative COVID test to get in. In 2025. Yeah, no one wants to do that shit again. We've had enough of Trump's macho bullshit and also enough of politics.
Bill Maher makes his stance clear. He favors capitalism, a system where individuals have the freedom to control their own destinies, make their own choices, and reap the rewards or face the consequences of their decisions. Argues that this framework encourages innovation, hard work, and personal responsibility, allowing people to shape their own futures rather than relying on government mandates. Frankly, that's a sentiment many Americans share, and it's at the heart of what the American dream represents. A vision where anyone, regardless of their background, can achieve success through effort, ingenuity, and determination. In Maher's view, socialism undermines this core principle by centralizing control, limiting opportunity, and stifling ambition. By championing capitalism, he's defending a system that prioritizes freedom, individual accountability.
Democratic socialists at another of their conventions, they were told to make jazz hands instead of clapping, lest some delegates suffer sensory overload. And also, and I'm not joking, they were told not to be wearing, any aggressive scents.
Please don't go into that space with anything that's like an aggressive scent, for instance, right? Because that's going to be difficult for people.
Oh, for fuck's sake.
Here, Ma criticizes Bernie Sanders and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez for failing to assert leadership and for catering too heavily to activist pressure. Maher's critique centers on moments when both politicians have actively joined or embraced activist energy rather than standing apart. For example, Sanders and AOC headline massive fighting oligarchy rallies, drawing tens of thousands of progressive activists to protest corporate influence and push a left-wing agenda, frequently amplifying chants and critiques from the crowd rather than steering them toward broad-based messaging. In another case, far-left factions at a rally accused both of not being progressive enough on the Israel-Palestine question, forcing them to navigate a chorus of activist demands rather than set policy themselves. Argues that instead of asserting leadership, they've often
Really? This is who the Democrats are thinking of following? Chuck Schumer ain't perfect, but at least he doesn't crumple into a heap when confronted with Chanel number 5. You may now clap in the traditional way. Thank you very much.
Ma argues this is exactly the kind of activist-driven messaging he expected. Bernie Sanders and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez to challenge, but instead, they appeared to accommodate it. Ma highlights the absurdity of some of these activist-driven norms, like the infamous incident at a conference where participants were instructed to clap in a specific way, creating what was described as sensory overload. Maher's point is sharp. How can something as simple as clapping become so overwhelming? And why should anyone accept it unquestioningly? And beyond that, can we even be sure that everyone in the room was comfortable with these jazzy hands rules? Or were some silently rolling their eyes? According to Ma, leaders like Bernie and AOC have a responsibility to stand firm and guide their followers rather than joining every trend that comes out of activism.
Why is the party that supports so many issues that benefit the middle class still considered out of touch by 62% of Americans? In plain English, nobody likes a snob. Hillary Clinton didn't have anyone on rural research or outreach when she ran in 2016 until the race tightened just before the election. Then they hired one. And where was his office? Brooklyn. True story. Politics is local, not locally sourced. It's not artisan. It's art and stand.
This clip is interesting because in one episode, Maher, who has criticized Chuck Schumer before, suddenly seems to praise him, and the reason says a lot about the current Democratic divide. Ma points out that Schumer at least will stand his ground on certain issues rather than bowing to every strand of woke activism. One clear example is Schumer's outspoken warning about rising anti-Semitism within the American left. As Senate Minority Leader, he delivered a major Senate speech and public commentary, condemning chants like "from the river to the sea" and other rhetoric he argued crossed the line from legitimate protest into dangerous bias, even when coming from within his own party's progressive ranks. Schumer's stance set him apart from some activist currents that dismiss those concerns and reflects a willingness to push back when he believes rhetoric goes too far.
Carville knew how to win, and he blamed the Democratic losses this November 2nd on stupid wokeness, to which AOC fired back that wokeness is a term almost exclusively used by older people these days. So that should tell you all you need to know. What? This is a term folks like you brought out very recently and had been proudly displaying at every march since. Just last year, The Guardian declared woke the word of our era. I guess they didn't get the memo from the Mean Girls Club. We don't use that emoji anymore. Woke, please. We say fetch now.
Aside from consistently deferring to activist-driven messaging, Maher argues that Democratic Party leadership has become disconnected from ordinary voters. According to Ma, instead of listening to the concerns of everyday citizens and proposing practical policies that address real problems like inflation, healthcare, and public safety, the party seems preoccupied with appeasing the most vocal and extreme elements of the progressive wing. He argues that this focus on the woke fringe comes at a cost. It alienates moderate voters and those who feel ignored, leaving them frustrated and disillusioned. Ma points out that the Democrats' obsession with signaling virtue or chasing the latest activist trend often results in grandstanding rather than governing. In his view, the party risks losing touch with the broader electorate, prioritizing ideology over tangible solutions. By failing to balance progressive ideals with mainstream concerns, the Democrats not only weakened their electoral prospects but also fail the very people they claim to represent.
Carville knew how to win, and he blamed the Democratic losses this November 2nd on stupid wokeness, to which AOC fired back that wokeness is a term almost exclusively used by older people these days. So that should tell you all you need to know. What? This is a term folks like you brought out very recently and had been proudly displaying at every march since. Just last year, The Guardian declared woke the word of our era. I guess they didn't get the memo from the Mean Girls Club. We don't use that emoji anymore. Woke, please. We say fetch now.
Interesting that Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is now trying to distance herself from the term woke, yet it has been a recurring theme at nearly all of her rallies and public appearances. While she may personally dislike the label, many of her actions and statements have led observers and critics alike to categorize her as part of the woke movement, from championing highly progressive policies to vocally supporting activist-led causes. Her public persona often aligns with the values associated with the woke left. Bill Maher argues that Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez consistently aligns herself with activist-driven politics, pointing to her repeated embrace of performative gestures, activist demands, and identity-focused messaging. In Maher's view, trying to reject the term while acting in ways that reinforce it only highlights a disconnect between perception and intention. Whether or not she embraces the label, her political brand has become closely tied to progressive activist movements. In the end, AOC's repeated alignment with progressive activism and performative gestures keeps her firmly in the woke spotlight. Despite her attempts to reject the label, Ma argues her actions speak louder than words, reinforcing the perception that she is deeply intertwined with the woke movement and its agenda.